Hi guys, this is my dad, and we are going to be talking about how it was growing up for him um, when he was a kid and how meals were done and stuff like that. So, number one, what kinds of stuff did you eat?
So my family was a working family, and so my grandmother was an RN, and my mom worked nights. So we really had to be on a pretty strategic and strict kind of a menu that kind of rotated weekly. So one night would be hamburger steak, which would be a padded, thicker type hamburger patty with some type of cream of mushroom sauce over some type of mashed potato and gravy with a vegetable and maybe like a baked apple or something like that. And then one night would be spaghetti, one night it might be salmon patties, one night, and that would usually have some type of squash or something like that cooked with it. And then one night might be salmon and rice, with naturally with green beans, and then always on Friday night would be the fun food. So we'd end up, cooking like a hamburger, cheeseburgers, or a hot dog, or something like that. Saturday night was usually fish fry night because we love to fish, and even in the winter, sometimes they'd have a good stock of fish that we caught over the summer and spring and fall, and so Saturday night was kind of fish fry night, and that was usually accompanied by French fries, homemade, and we never went out to eat very much at all. It's pretty much everything was a home cooked meal, and then Sunday was the big meal. Usually it was a roast or stew beef or fried chicken or some type of meal like that, all home cooked, and usually accompanied by a vegetable or biscuits, hush puppies, those types of things. So that was kind of how the meals were structured in regards to dinners. Lunches, were more based on what we were doing. It might be school, I'd eat lunch at school, or pack a, bologna and cheese sandwich or something like that. And then, if it was summertime, we might eat fish sticks or, again, bologna and cheese sandwiches, whatever it might be. And then breakfasts, we were really late sleepers, last minute type of people. So, rarely ever was there kind of the whole, bacon and eggs and grits types of things. Maybe on the weekend. Usually it was mostly just grab whatever was handy. My mom was famous for her kind of a Texas toast bread with some spaghetti sauce or pizza sauce with some cheese and put it on top of it. And we'd have like a little breakfast pizza, or maybe some cereal or some type of granola bar or something like that. So really, that's kind of how meals are structured growing up in my when I was growing up in the household where I was raised.
Okay, so what was like the environment of the meals? Like, did y'all sit down at the table? Did y'all eat in the den? Like,
It was always at the table, and so it was usually, we'd my brother and I and my cerebral palsy uncle, and my grandmother. Usually, I'll sit at the table. My grandpa, he would usually sit in the living room with a kind of a TV table, and he'd eat in there. He rarely ate at the table with us. So it was a somewhat family setting. And but he was always in the next room, and he would talk to us from the next room. I don't understand what was going on with that, but and mom worked nights, so the dinner, usually mom wasn't part of the dinner, and because she was, working those night shifts. But ultimately, it was myself, my brother, and my grandma, and my uncle, who has cerebral palsy, and he was, with those challenges as a handicapped individual, he was bad to choke, and those types of things. So it really, it could be stressful at times, making sure that he was able to eat his meals correctly and safely. And so, that was kind of the structure of the family meal.
Um, so as far as like times, like what time did y'all usually eat supper?
Uh, yeah, so grandma was director of nursing, and so sometimes she would get off late. And my grandpa, he sold insurance in Winston, and we were always involved with sports. So typically we wouldn't all really get into the house together and have the meal prepared till about 8 9 in the evening. So that was around that 8 o'clock 9 o'clock time was usually when the meals were served for dinner. And again, lunch was more dictated toward the time of year and whether we were in school.
And stuff, yeah. Um, and then as far as like food rules, like you have to eat everything on your plate, or you have to eat all of your vegetables, stuff like that. What was like the main food rules?
Yeah, really just clean your plate. It was kind of expected, naturally, because everybody was kind of proud of their cooking ability, and if you didn't cook, you didn't eat everything, it was kind of an insult. And then naturally, I was raised during that time period where you got the lecture about there were starving children in Ethiopia, and just for the health purposes of it, and we really enjoyed eating. Eating was a big part of our home, and we enjoyed, not so much trying new things, but being specialists at um, certain foods, and so the enjoyment of that dictated the cleaning the plate, and then eating quickly. It was somewhat a military home. My grandpa was a Korean War vet from the military, U.S. Marine Corps, and nobody really kind of dwelled at the table and had long meals. It was you scarf it down and move along, just because naturally it was the time of night it was, and we were just lived such busy lives. And sometimes I do remember kind of just this conversation kind of brought it back to play. Um, Growing up in my younger years, I remember um, grandma would have a little black and white TV in the kitchen, and Andy Griffith's show would come on, and we'd eat watching that, and the 9 o'clock news would be on, and then ultimately that moved to a color TV sitting on her first microwave, so yeah, cool memories around the dinner table.
Um, so how did it change from like when you were in elementary school to like your high school years? How did like it change throughout the years?
Not at all. Yeah, really, it stayed consistent pretty much my whole life, and a lot of that carried into my adult life when once I got married, and some of those same meals my family taught your mother. The meatloaf, the hamburger steak, the salmon patties,
Mm-hmm.
all those things were things that grandma and great grandma
Mm-hmm.
perfected and really passed on to her.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's
Yeah, grandma's even taught me some stuff.
yep,
So
yep.
yeah. As far as the food rules go, like eat everything on your plate. How do you think that transcribed over to your adult life? Do you think that in that time that when you were told to eat everything on your plate, did that create a problem later in life of possibly overeating or anything like that, that you felt you had to eat everything on your plate otherwise?
Not really. I think um, so being a type 2 diabetic now, I don't attribute to eating everything on your plate because we proportioned it to where it was a healthy meal. And there were so many of us there in the house, there wasn't a whole lot of seconds.
Okay,
Um,
so it wasn't like they gave you this big plate of food and you had to eat
No.
all of it. It was a normal portion.
Exactly.
And you were expected to eat the normal portion.
I think being a type 2 diabetic is a direct result of a change in diet. So in that household, the drink factor went from was the staple was sweet tea, but it was homemade sweet tea, and it was kind of it wasn't really rich in a lot of sugar, but it wasn't any soda. We had no Cokes, Pepsis, things like that, except for Friday night with our hamburgers, and that was when everybody could remember to get one. And when we did that, we bought one big 3 liter that was split between, at that time, probably 10 of us. And then when your mother and I got married, soda became a staple in our meals, and it was just the 2 of us for 11 years. And so, cleaning your plate and the excess of food accompanied by the sugary drinks all played a factor to where I'm a type 2 diabetic today. And so those changes in practice and discipline, availability, and freedom all were not necessarily a great change.
Great, so I think we kind of got the information that we need, and I hope this helped, and hopefully I will do another video soon.